Hi there, my name's Eric, and I'm an alcoholic and probably an addict too. Uh, Purpose of this video is I wanted to reach out to the man or woman that's struggling with the drink and addictions, and a little bit about what I did, and encourage you that you can do it. You can get sober, and how the steps um, actually do work. And they're simple, but they're not easy. And what we have is a spiritual malady coupled with a physical allergy and obsession of the mind. And when there's something wrong with our insides, a lot of people have different things, the way they handle it. Um, but as far as the malady of the spirit, and then it manifests with obsession of the mind, physical allergy and obsession of the mind. And so in between drinks, maybe you're trying to stop for a while, and then there's obsession that, to drinking again. And so it never, that's what happens. And once that happens, you're off to the races, and that physical allergy takes over. And how do you handle that? I guess you have to hit your bottom. And I don't have the best story in the world, but it's mine. And I had some serious misery in it. A lot of years, you know, dragging myself through the mud. I grew up in middle class suburbia, and I had a great childhood, great parents, and I had a great school to go to. We walked to school, we walked back, we didn't have to get picked up. It was a better time, I think. But the one thing that is the same in these times is how those that have this affliction, uh, it's the same. That hasn't changed with time, no matter what the times are. And so, how do you get sober? And I wanted to get sober so bad. I fantasized about it. And the fantasize about getting sober, that was pretty pathetic. And I also, at that time when I finally put the plug in the jug for good, I thought I was 29 years old, and then I found out that I was 28. And I mean, who doesn't know how old they are in their 20s? And like I said, it was pretty pathetic. But I'd made many attempts to get sober, and I white knuckled it many different times. It just never stuck. The obsession of the mind comes back. It's an insidious disease. I think that's a real good word for it. So I'm going to, in another video, but I'm going to go over the steps in detail and how they do work. And there's some people out there bashing Alcoholics Anonymous, saying it's a cult and it's brainwashing and all that. There's quite a few of them. I was actually pretty disappointed to see that, and they know a lot of haters on that. Well, it worked for me, and I've seen tons of other people that it worked for. And the steps, what they do is they help insert or reinstall self-esteem and sense of purpose. And so, any store that doesn't get rid of its unsaleable goods can't stay in business. And we're kind of like that. We have unsaleable goods. And we need to discard them. We need to get rid of them, but can't recognize them. Think that we're okay. And when you look in the mirror, people are seeing something else than I think what we're seeing. And if you've ever had that feeling where, come into a room and it gets quiet or something like that. I remember opening my door in the courtyard this time. It was a small, little community with a gate, and it was apartments, and called the Villa Madrid. And I'd open the door, and all the neighbors were standing there, and they just got real quiet, and they slammed their doors, and they went inside. I'm like, oh, man, my neighbors hate me. And I realized, maybe you don't have anything, story like that. It doesn't matter. But people, they know. we think you're getting away with, they're not going to know I'm drinking, or, they can't tell you. Yeah, they know. And we get twisted, and we get bent. And people are nice. They don't say. So, people say behind your back, so that both these things mess with your self-esteem. You know it's there, you know what's going on. And, I hated myself for what I was doing, and I didn't like myself. And I remember taking down or putting covers over every mirror at one point. And I think it was around 1993, just before I got sober. My sobriety date, if I haven't said it already, was January 4, 1995. So I just celebrated 30 years of sobriety. And that is physical sobriety, not mental and spiritual sobriety. So we can only boast that that sobriety date is physical. So, but the steps will help us get to more of a sound state of mind and body, spiritually and mentally. And of course, we want to keep that physical sobriety. And how do you do that? Well, the steps do work. And we'll be going over that in detail in another video. And we're going to take them in pieces. We're not going to do them all at once. And, they say the first thing about is knowing there's a problem and admitting it to it. And remember, admitting just doesn't mean to say. It means to let in, like a ticket for admission, to concede to our innermost self that we were alcoholic. And so we're not managers. We can't manage our own lives. And if you've had these feelings and you're just trying to, you want to get sober, you want to get past this, and you just don't know how to. And again, the steps help reinstall self-esteem, because we're going to go over all of our grosser handicaps, and we're going to get rid of them. And so we have to put some stuff on paper. That was one of my resentments. Was my mother always told me to put things down on paper. So actually, that was one of my resentments in my 4th step. But everything in this life, every conflict that goes on, and goes for every class, creed, all around the globe, instincts in collision. That's the problem. So the physical allergy and obsession of the mind, that obsession of the mind gets you to drink, and because we have a physical allergy, we can't stop drinking. So our actions, as marshaled by the will, are insufficient. And they talk about a line that's crossed. We don't know quite where it is. And how do you get alcoholism? Some people say you're born with it. I don't know. But I know the way to find out is you feed it. And the longer I stay sober, there's people that I believe I'm more alcoholic, if there's such a thing, that it's out there. People say that, it's doing push-ups. So if I were to drink, it would be as if I hadn't stopped. The other people that have gone out and scouts, I've watched them come and go. I've watched people come and go through a lot of years. And it's hard to watch that revolving door. I did it a little bit. Like I said, we had an earthquake in Northridge in 1993. And that's when I had all the mirrors torn down. I couldn't stand to look at myself. It had gotten to that point, and it was getting close to 17 years, a 17-year walk into the forest, and maybe it's a 17-year walk out. And if that's the case, I've long since passed that. But it takes a long time to recover. But it doesn't mean you can't have physical sobriety, get a job. Don't get in a relationship right away. Get a plant. Don't get a dog. Get a plant. If you can keep that alive, then that's great. But if you want to get sober, that's maybe why you're here. And, if you're just listening in, you've had some sobriety, maybe it's nice to listen to other alcoholics and their perspective. I really enjoy speakers. I'm going to encourage you, everybody here to listen to speakers. There's plenty of them on YouTube. They're all over the place. I really like Mickey Bush. I can't name others off the top of my head, but he's just funny. And I actually got to see him at the Raptors in Southern California, I think 2 or 3 times. And the guy he's just a riot, we want to be entertained, but we want to know how to not drink. And like I said, it's simple, but it's just not easy. Their simplicity and the steps are pretty amazing. And so if you can admit or let in that you're an alcoholic, or concede to your innermost self that you're an alcoholic and you can't manage your own life, and then you're ready to take certain steps. And I think I got that a little bit messed up. I'm doing this completely unscripted, so I had no idea what I'm going to say. But the steps will reinstall that self-esteem, or give you more than you had. And if you can identify with any of these things, I really encourage you to go ahead and subscribe. This is a brand new channel. I have no subscribers yet, and share it. But hit a meeting, man. You got to get to a meeting and get a sponsor. When I heard about sponsor, what the heck is that? You mean I'm going to print on my lapel like Safeway or Cracker Barrel, or John? You got to go Johnson and Johnson, or I just picking random names, And no, it's not that. A sponsor is somebody that's going to, or a spiritual advisor, that's going to help you, take you through the steps, because the blind leading the blind. I don't think we can get through this thing. We can't. I couldn't work my way out of a paper bag, man. I needed help, and I went through a lot of sponsors, and it wasn't their fault. Before I finally did my steps, I got to 1, 2, 3. I'm on 4. 1, 2, 3. I'm on 4. And when I finally got sober for real in 1995. I didn't do I didn't get to my 4th step for about 3.5 years, and I kind of rode a pink cloud, and it was a service. I just surrounded myself, and this will work for a while. I really encourage you. If you want to stop drinking and drugging or whatever, but if you're in AA, just say get loaded. I don't want to get loaded, and identify as an alcoholic. Just this kind of protocol, unless you go to NA, then don't identify as an alcoholic. Identify as an addict. When in Rome. And where was I? Where was I? Oh, yes. I had every key in the building at the rafters in Newhall, near Santa Clarita by Magic Mountain. It's a kind of a famous building, and actually they just tore it down. It's kind of sad what happened there, but it was a great place to get sober. And I was a service. I did everything I could. I went to 3, 4 meetings a day, and luckily I was able to get a job where they let me go to a meeting in the morning, and not the earlier one, because I'm just not a super early person. But it was a 9 o'clock meeting, and it was like an hour long, and then I would go into work, and then I'd hit up an evening meeting and usually stay for 2. I immersed myself in the I hope I would get it by osmosis, and it will work if you just surround yourself by, around sober people. You can do, but you got to do the steps. If we don't do the steps, we can't clear out that wreckage and move on and rebuild. So some of the stuff will fester, and you'll find out if you don't do it. But staying sober is one thing, but getting sober is one thing, but staying sober is another. And so about 3.5 years in, man, like I said, I had every key to the building. I was a service. I was doing all dance coordinator and, making coffee, being a secretary, or lead meetings and whatever, and alcothons. And, I even printed shirts for our group. I got real involved in that. And so, but the bottom, they call it a pink cloud. The bottom just fell out, and I lost it. I didn't drink, thank God, but I didn't start clearing the wreckage out. And so, we do have a grudge list, and we'll get into that further, and, or resentment, and we put our resentments down on paper, and then what it affects, and, our part, and then there's always fear. That's what this world's all about. Every conflict is instincts in collision, but it's fear-based. And it's the same for us, the little people, trying to get sober and stay sober. And so if I had one thing to say, I would get to a meeting and start looking for a sponsor and immerse yourself in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm going to go over the steps, as I said again. I'm going to go over them in detail and explain why they work, and it will start to make sense. But I'm going to encourage you to get a sponsor because you need to share that stuff with him. And ladies, get your sponsor, get a lady, and men, get a man. Okay, and try to stay out of the dating pool. And hey, man, that just don't do it. So. Have the knowledge of God's will and the power to carry it out. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.